Sarah was a recent college graduate returning to her grandmother's house after a painful breakup. Seeking solace, she wandered into the forbidden forest nearby, known for strange occurrences. The villagers often spoke of eerie voices, but Sarah dismissed them as folklore. Yet as she ventured deeper, the temperature dropped, and she heard faint murmurs. These whispers seemed to know her secrets, her fears, and even her recent heartbreak. Startled, she tried to trace the source, but the forest seemed alive, the trees swaying without wind. Panic surged as the whispers grew clearer, almost conversational. She turned to leave, but the path behind her was gone, swallowed by the encroaching darkness. Racing back to safety, Sarah was left haunted by the whispers, unsure if they were real or imagined. Haunted by the forest experience, Sarah sought explanations but found only vague legends of a cursed grove. Drawn by an inexplicable need, she returned, discovering a hidden path that wasn't there before. The path was lined with ancient trees, their bark etched with strange symbols. As she walked, she felt a strange sense of familiarity, like she was being welcomed home. But suddenly the path vanished, leaving her in an unfamiliar part of the woods. The trees around her seemed to loom closer, their branches creaking ominously. Desperately, she tried to retrace her steps, but every direction seemed to lead her deeper into the forest. The whispers returned, now sounding like distant calls for help. Terrified, Sarah realized she was truly lost, both physically and mentally, in the labyrinthine woods. Nightfall brought an oppressive darkness that swallowed the forest. Sarah, clutching her flashlight, felt eyes watching her from every shadow. The whispers were gone, replaced by an eerie silence. Her flashlight caught brief glimpses of glowing eyes, too high and too numerous to belong to any known creature. As she moved, the eyes followed, never blinking, always observing. Her imagination ran wild, concocting images of grotesque beings lurking just out of sight. The fear was paralyzing, but she pushed on, praying for an exit. But every step seemed to lead her deeper into the forest's heart. Exhausted, she collapsed, the eyes closing in, making her feel like prey in a predator's territory. Sarah felt her grip on reality slipping, wondering if she would ever see daylight again. Sarah wandered aimlessly, her sense of time and direction shattered. The whispers evolved into mournful wails, echoing through the forest like cries of the damned. She stumbled upon a clearing with an ancient tree at its center, its bark covered in faces twisted in silent agony. The air was thick with a palpable sadness, as if the very ground was soaked with despair. The wails grew louder, coming from the faces in the tree, each one a soul trapped in eternal torment. Drawn to the tree, Sarah felt an overwhelming urge to touch it, to understand the pain it held. As her fingers brushed the bark, she felt a surge of emotion, sorrow, anger, regret, all flooding her senses. She pulled back, horrified, realizing the forest was a graveyard for lost souls, their pain manifesting as the forest whispers and wails. In her final moments of clarity, Sarah saw shadowy figures materialize among the trees. They were the souls of those lost to the forest, their bodies gone but their essence trapped. They reached out to her, not with malice, but with desperation, seeking release. The forest felt alive, its roots twisting around her feet, pulling her toward an ancient altar covered in moss. The whispers reached a fever pitch, urging her to lie down, promising peace. Exhausted and defeated, Sarah complied, feeling the forest closing around her. As she lay on the cold stone, she realized the forest wasn't evil. It was a prison, and she was its next inmate. The whispers faded into silence, and Sarah felt herself drifting away, becoming one with the forest, another voice in the endless chorus of despair. In the midst of their expedition, a thick canopy overhead cast the forest in perpetual twilight. The travelers are lured by the mysterious beauty, ignoring the creeping sense of unease. As they delve deeper, an unsettling silence takes over, broken only by the faintest rustling. They dismiss the eerie quiet, attributing it to their overactive imaginations. However, the sounds persist, seemingly forming an indecipherable language. As the day wanes, they feel the weight of unseen eyes. They decide to set up camp, but a palpable tension hangs in the air, and unease settles like a shroud around them. Morning brings a dense fog that blankets the forest, muffling all sound. The air is thick and damp, clinging to their skin as they move. The travelers find it hard to breathe, each inhalation a struggle against the oppressive mist. They attempt to stick together, but the fog swallows their voices, making communication nearly impossible. Shapes move at the periphery of their vision, flickering like phantoms. The landscape feels foreign, the ground beneath their feet yielding unnaturally. The fog lifts momentarily, revealing grotesque shadows lurking just out of sight, leaving the group disoriented and fearful of what lies ahead. As the fog clears, they find themselves in an alien part of the forest. The trees are twisted, their branches gnarled like the fingers of old forgotten gods. Every direction looks the same, a maze of foliage and undergrowth. The group becomes increasingly frantic, the oppressive atmosphere stoking their anxieties. They stumble upon strange markings, crude and primitive, etched into the bark. These symbols grow more frequent, leading them to realize they are following a path. The forest seems to close in around them, each step echoing with an unseen presence's intent. They push on, desperately trying to find an exit from this nightmare. As night falls, they discover an old campsite, abandoned yet eerily intact. Scattered journals and belongings tell the tale of past wanderers who met similar fates. The writings detail the same creeping dread, the same sense of being watched. As they read, the air grows colder, and they hear faint, disembodied voices recounting the journal stories. Spectral figures appear, haunting visions of those who came before. The forest reveals snippets of the past, showing how each previous group succumbed to despair and madness. The travelers understand they are part of a recurring nightmare, a trap laid by the forest itself. Determined to break free, they follow clues left by the journals. The path leads them to a clearing, dominated by an ancient tree that seems to pulse with a life of its own. The air is thick with anticipation, and the oppressive feeling intensifies. The ground around the tree is littered with offerings, items left by those who sought escape. The whispers return, now a cacophony, urging them toward the tree. They realize a sacrifice must be made, an appeasement to the forest's dark forces. As dawn approaches, they face an impossible choice, understanding that only through sacrifice can they hope to leave this place. The forest was known for its eerie atmosphere, with trees that seemed to murmur secrets to those who listened closely. The locals whispered tales of spirits and strange occurrences, making the place a forbidden destination. Ignoring the warnings, a group ventured into the woods, driven by a mix of skepticism and thrill-seeking. As they journeyed deeper, the forest chill intensified, and they began hearing indistinct voices, as if the trees themselves were speaking. They stumbled upon an old cabin, abandoned and decaying, with cryptic symbols carved into its walls. Inside, a dusty journal recounted strange experiences of previous visitors, heightening their unease. Leaving the cabin, they followed a narrow trail marked with similar symbols, feeling as though they were being guided. The further they went, the more disoriented they became, as if the forest were alive and shifting around them. Night fell swiftly, bringing with it an oppressive darkness and the unsettling feeling of being watched. Faint, glowing eyes appeared in the shadows, blinking in unison, accompanied by mocking laughter that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Terrified, they debated their next move, but the forest seemed intent on keeping them. They found themselves in a clearing at dawn, dominated by an ancient stone altar covered in symbols. The atmosphere felt charged, the air heavy with a palpable tension. Drawn to the altar by an unseen force, one of them touched it, silencing the cacophony of whispers that had been growing. Suddenly, a scream pierced the air. A member of their group had vanished. The silence that followed was deafening, as they realized the forest had taken another life, adding to its dark legend. The forest, they understood too late, was not just a place but a living entity, hungry for those who dared to disturb its secrets. A group of high school students, spurred by a mix of curiosity and boredom, decide to explore the ominous forest behind their school. They've heard whispers of strange happenings and ghostly apparitions, but dismiss them as mere rumors. As they enter the woods, the air grows colder and the canopy above thickens, casting deep shadows. They come across a dilapidated cabin, its windows broken and door ajar. Despite an eerie feeling, they decide to take shelter inside as night falls, lighting a fire for warmth. The atmosphere is tense. Each creak of the floorboards and rustle of the leaves outside puts them on edge. As they settle in, they hear faint whispers, indistinct but unsettling. One student swears they saw a shadow move outside, but the others brush it off nervously. Morning reveals a shocking discovery. One of their friends has disappeared without a trace. They search the immediate area, finding only an abandoned backpack near a circle of stones. Panic sets in as they realize they are lost with no clear way back. The forest seems to close in around them, paths shifting and landmarks disappearing. Desperate, they retreat to the cabin, where they find an old journal. It tells of a curse laid upon the forest by settlers who vanished long ago, leaving behind cryptic symbols and a dire warning. The students piece together that they may be trapped by the same curse, the whispers growing louder as if to confirm their fears. As the day wears on, they notice strange occurrences. The forest feels alive, with trees seemingly watching them. The journal hints at a ritual to break the curse, involving an altar deep within the woods. The group decides to attempt it, hoping to free themselves. They follow the journal's clues, guided by the increasingly insistent whispers. At the heart of the forest, they find the altar, surrounded by symbols matching those in the journal. As they perform the ritual, the atmosphere grows more oppressive, the whispers turning into a cacophony. The students begin to see apparitions of the lost settlers, their faces contorted in silent screams. The ground shakes, and the air thickens, making it hard to breathe. In a final desperate act, they complete the ritual. A blinding light engulfs them, and for a moment, everything goes silent. They find themselves at the forest's edge, the dawn breaking. The sun's rays feel like a lifeline, pulling them back to reality. They are safe, but the experience has left them shaken. The forest is quiet now, but they know they'll never forget the terror they faced, nor the mysteries that still linger in the shadows.